Welcome everybody to the 8th Town Hall. So as I'm sure everybody here is aware, this is what would usually be our advisory board. So it went quite well last time, and we like the idea of opening up advisory boards periodically so that we can get more feedback and engagement from the rest of the community as well, because obviously it isn't only the advisory board using SiteGuide. So thanks to anybody else who's joined this evening as well. What we're going to do is we've largely left, as you'll know from the invitation, we've largely left tonight open as an open floor, so an opportunity for you guys to bring questions and feedback to us, and you can get direct input to Luke and myself. I think Matt's here as well in the background. But Luke's also got some updates to billing that he'd like to discuss, some of the plans that have been made to make improvements there. And then I've got a couple of bits to touch on later as well, just to recap. So Menu Builder, for example, and some of the questions for the end of year webinar in December. So I think, Luke, if you're ready, we'll probably just kick things off with you before we open the floor up for questions to everybody else as well.
Yeah, sure. If anybody's got anything pressing that they want to make sure we discuss, then feel free to jump in first. I plan to be quite quick, but essentially wanted to just get some ideas, get some feedback on ideas we've got to improve billing, maybe go through some of the pain points with you guys, look at what some solutions are and whether you think we're on the right track. So anything before that you think is worth really highlighting now, or should we jump straight in?
I do have a question, but it can wait. It's not pressing.
You sure? Okay.
Well, yeah.
Make sure.
And I want to hear Nick's list too.
Okay, here we go. No, I haven't got a list other than really liking Tailwind. So
Awesome.
And the Flowbyte integrations. So yeah, we've kind of done 2 sites with those now, and yeah, it's rolled out really nicely. So yeah, just a bit of positive feedback on that one. But anyway, I want to hear about the billing, because that's I'm keen to.
That's great to hear, actually.
Keen to hear.
Yes, I'm hoping it will be helpful for you, and yeah, everybody's input will be interesting, but there's different people in different situations, different number of sites, that kind of stuff. So it'll be really good to get everybody's input.
Definitely.
But yeah, just quickly on the Tailwind thing, that's really good to hear. I mean, I think that the worst thing about it is it's the learning curve of jumping from something like Bootstrap to Tailwind. So if you've overcome some of those hurdles, I think hopefully it'll only get better.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's
Awesome.
gone very well so far. A few kind of teething issues, but nothing too serious, and the guys seem to quite like it. So yeah, it's all good.
Good stuff. Cool. I mean, just from what I've seen, getting involved in some projects and just using Flowbyte a bit, the amount of time it can save, having that whole process and the code available as well. Yeah, I think it's well worth looking at if you haven't already, in terms of, I know it can be a bit scary, sort of, well, not scary, but seem like it could be a big loss of time to jump from Bootstrap, but I think it would be worth having a look if you haven't already. And obviously Site Builder as well, hopefully helping speed up some of the steps. But cool, I will jump into billing. I will try and keep it brief, and I'll probably rattle through it if that's okay, and then we can come back to some of the questions so that you can see what we've done and take it from there. So I'll just share my screen. One second. There we go. Can you see a billing presentation? Hopefully you all can. I think you can. Oh, Zoom's actually showing you what you're sharing. That's quite handy. Right, so we really recognize that there are some pain points across the board really on billing. It's not how we want it to be. And what I really want to make sure is we understand the pain points from you guys. I think we've got a really good idea of some of them, but I think it would be good just to go through it and maybe jot down some more. I'll just quickly rattle off these ones, and do feel free to jump in at this point, actually, if you think it's worth it, mentioning some of the pain points, but we could always come back to them as well. But I know that one of the challenges is the fact that the process is often disconnected for you guys. Maybe you're paying us and then having to separately go back and check with your customer whether you're even charging for the right plan, and having to manage that process. And then tied into that, I guess, is unknown and unexpected costs, so overages and upgrades being hard to predict. I think one of the worst ones with upgrades is if you're on annual billing, the fact that it sort of starts a whole new year again, and that can just obviously be a bigger cost than if it was just prorated. Another one we definitely can control, and it's not so much billing related, is allowing you to limit what usage can even occur. So if you didn't have to use CRM and cases on forms, you wouldn't actually have potentially any surprises at all, because if you're not adding new items or anything like that, then it shouldn't really change. And then finally, maybe more for you, Nick, but anybody really who's managing multiple sites, when you're sort of managing at volume, we know that that's these problems get multiplied, and it becomes hard to manage. Anybody want to jump in? Do you feel that that covers it generally, or is there a big one that I've missed, do you say?
Yeah, I think that mainly covers what I've experienced, at least. And yeah, I guess from our point of view, we never know when billing is due, I think, as much as anything. So, and I guess from last year, where we did have a lot of upgrades in, well, probably year 1 and year 2, and then trying to remember when upgrades are due, and they kind of just it's not the end of the world. But I think we had 4 kind of lots of $300 or something like that just came out. It's just like, oh yeah, well, okay. I'm sure it's all absolutely correct. It's just you just don't know when they're coming. So it would be be good to work out a way so that we're not particularly surprised. And then when they do come, you have to dig into the system, and it's certainly better than it was, because we can at least look at all the invoices and kind of find out which sites they're tied to. But yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if the billing email told us which site it was. But I appreciate that's a Stripe challenge rather than anything else.
Not necessarily, and I think that's probably the 6th one that I missed off that list. What you've really highlighted there is number 4, the fact that annual billing starts another 12 months creates that ongoing issue. It means that then you've got those renewals happening at random times. And then obviously number 5 is that you've got lots of that going on. Number 6 really should have been the UI, being able to quickly see upcoming renewals or something like that would at least help with that problem. But it's caused by the fact that the annual renewals shouldn't be working. They shouldn't be starting a new year. It's a platform OS trait or setup thing. They didn't really think about it, in my opinion, fully from the customer perspective. And I've never liked that from day one. So that's something that we will be getting rid of. I've told them we will. I think it's completely wrong that you should mid-year suddenly be forced into a whole new year and not really expecting it. So yeah, thanks. That sort of clarifies what I was thinking on number sort of 4 and 5, and the UI side of things. Anybody else feel there's a big? I think it's probably best at this stage to leave pricing out of it a little. Sorry, Devin, go for it.
Yeah, I just want to understand number 4, because I don't think I've either felt this pain yet or something. So you're saying right now, as it stands, if we switch to annual billing, like in March or something, then it's basically resetting for another 12 months versus charging for 9 months, like 9 months. Am I following right? Or
so it's more the upgrade. So if I think we licensed a lot of our sites in September, and then we would
Okay.
get to March and we'd have a site that needed an upgrade. So it would go from, I don't know, let's just make up some figures, from
Sure.
$300 to $400. But then it would look and go, right, you're 6 months in, we'll now bill you for 12 months on the annual at the higher amount. So you ended up with,
Right.
you know, the increase. It didn't just kind of charge you the rest, the extra amount for
The rest of the
next
year.
6 months.
Right.
It charged
Yeah.
you another 12 months, which, you know, it's not the end of the world. It's not like we're, you know, not going to use that and so on and so forth. But yeah, it was just kind of unexpected amounts to a certain extent, I guess.
Got it. So the
Basically means-
desired state would be that it would charge you for the remainder of the year at the higher rate, the $400 in your example, and then
yeah.
come right. Okay, yeah, I'm following. Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
I did get that right, didn't I? Hopefully.
You did, yeah. I personally don't think a billing date should change without you choosing it. Like if you start it, as you say, Nick, maybe you've got a 10 pack in September, that's 10 sites all starting in September. They should renew every September, in my opinion. And you're highlighting now that they renew at any point throughout the year because of that upgrade process, which
Yeah,
we will
then it's a
definitely-
bit confusing to kind of understand, well, which are part of a 10 pack, which 10 pack are they part of, and so on and so forth. But
it's also
first world issues.
hard to yeah, well, I mean, I really see the struggle there with customers, because it's very, I mean, a customer's not necessarily going to expect you to go back to them after 4 months and say, oh, by the way, you need to pay for a whole nother year. As this problem gets passed down the line to not our customer but your customer, it starts to become a bigger problem, in my opinion, and we definitely want to resolve that. Any glaring ones that you feel I've missed at this point, or should we sort of move on to the more positive side and look at the solutions?
Keen for those solutions, as ever.
Cool, I'll move on.
Yeah,
then.
let's
If you
see
guys...
what you got.
Cool. So my thinking is that we need to make some fairly fundamental changes. We're not going to just patch over stuff here. We're going to try and get billing right. So the thing I'd love to get to, and we have a plan for, would be one bill for all your sites on that model if you want it. So it would be like a consolidated billing model. I can see that has gone down quite well potentially, Nick. But yeah, so a consolidated billing option where you could manage all of your sites under one bill if you want to. I'll come onto that in more detail shortly. I think monthly billing for all sites by default, and the option to have annual upgrades, but the opposite of what we just discussed, so prorated, and it would keep the same billing date ongoing. Looking at trying to make annual quite attractive as well. I'll explain more on that, but from a customer perspective, you might want to get them on annual, and we want to make that more attractive. Number 3, ensure that all usage is optional. Yeah, so just being able to turn off CRM and cases on forms is one of the big ones there. I don't think there's many other examples where we kind of force usage, but we'll go through that and make sure that you can run usage as low as you want. And then finally, this is the one I really want to get to and put a lot of effort into and thought into, is we really set out when we did the Stripe Connect route and everything to try and make it automated so that you always saw SiteGlide as a positive, like a profit rather than cost. If we can give you a fully automated billing system where the client's paying you and you're making a margin, then it's obviously a lot more attractive, and we've always wanted to do that. Didn't get it quite right, I don't think, with the whole Stripe Connect model. So I'll quickly show you what we've got in mind, and it'd be really helpful to get your thoughts on whether we're going in the right direction on it. Bear in mind that everything I show you next is just ideas, planning. It is not confirmed, and I'm still waiting. I've got a call with Platform OS on Thursday, sorry, to try and firm up exactly what we're getting from them and doing with them. So I really cannot guarantee any of this. It's just an idea of the direction we'd like to go in. I hope it's more than an idea, but I just can't guarantee it yet. So example only, written everywhere, because yeah, don't quote us on this. But essentially, this will seem quite similar to what we've got already, but I think it's worth highlighting. We want to keep the concept of simple pricing with no surprises for the end customer. So for the site owner, your clients, whoever it is, people coming direct to SiteGlide, we want there to be a simple model where people can just pay for a plan and most likely stay on that plan, stay within their usage limits, and if they do go over, it's a reasonable cost. And you get more value as you go up through the plans is the concept here. We've already got this. It's not too dissimilar from what we've got already. I'd say the one difference there on the right is trying to make the allowances more staggered, so that you don't have to keep upgrading, but also far more valuable as you go up. So because you tend to find that if you're going to start to use volume, a lot of data, you're going to use it more and more. So we want to make that more and more affordable. So a couple of points on this. Yeah, if anybody hits the plan limit, you can just continue and it's at the same rate, or you can upgrade and get better value. But there's no like penalty for staying on the same plan as there was with the original overages. Hoping to make it more generous in terms of allowances and better rates. That obviously needs to be confirmed. We really want there to be an option to get started from a lower cost than we have at the moment. That's not to sort of race to the bottom. It's just that you might want to run just a website with no database objects, emails, that kind of stuff. And it's basically just the way to get started. It's the essential plan, bare bones, website, domain, SSL, some storage, and obviously all of the platform OS infrastructure. 5 I'll come on to a little bit later, but that's being able to kind of really do some custom plans and set all of this up yourselves. So these are plans that we would provide. They would be almost sort of the rate card ones, and then you can do whatever you want on top. Rattling through these a little bit. This is probably one where we will want more feedback on, is whether people prefer an invoice for the plan, and if there were any extras, that would be a separate invoice billed in arrears, or whether people would want that still included on the normal subscription as line items. The tricky bit of including it on the same one is that you end up talking about 2 different time periods in the same invoice. But I think people are kind of used to that with like a phone subscription or something. I'll go through it and we can come back at the end. Yeah, annual option available. I think we'd like to look at something more like 12 months for the price of 10, 2 months free, however you want to word it, rather than 10% discount. I think it's more tangible. You can kind of see the benefits more of that. So we'd want to try and offer that. But again, it'll be something that you guys can control. And yeah, being able to turn off those features that would create any sort of surprise increases. So pretty much.
I have a quick
Go for it, Devin.
I don't know if I'm following number 2. This all looks great, but I'm not sure I'm following number 2, which is that like there's a penalty. I mean, it wasn't really a penalty. It was just we paid extra if we went over the limits, right? So
the original plans that POS, before I negotiated them, their overages rates were just extortionate. And
yes,
I made sure we got rid of those. So the current plans, which I know it's got very confusing having different types, but the current ones
this is like we're in generation 2.
Yeah,
we're in like generation 2 and you're discussing generation 3. I got you. Okay.
They're very, very similar. I would say the only tweak, it's sort of 2.5, is just trying to make the allowances more generous, basically. But it's pretty much the same model here. The important bit is what I'll move on to next, and then we can kind of wrap it up.
Okay.
So sorry, I'll let you come back if it doesn't make sense. But what I really want to do is separate. So you have these site plans that you can sell to customers, and then this is more how we work with you guys. So giving you a consolidated volume-based model where there's a fee for the instance itself, and that's something with POS. They have to manage volume of sites versus volume of records and usage. So this is quite a nice way of handling both and also keeping it nice and simple for you guys. So you can get started with a site for $20. It's the same price as the retail one, essentially, because we want to keep that rock bottom, but then you guys get the margin on the units. So what happens here effectively is, rather than on the individual site plans, people don't get the benefit of the higher allowances and the lower rates until they go up to those higher plans. With this would be spread across all of your sites. I'll try and explain it quickly, but effectively, if you had 12 sites and a total usage across all of them of 78,000 units, you would just pay the unit cost. You benefit from the lower rates across all of them, and it brings your sort of economies of scale, essentially. So and another point I didn't explain, which I need to just cover, is we've tried to combine all the different metrics into something called units. So again, this needs to be confirmed, but records, emails, storage, API calls, and potentially new things like automations would all fall under units to save having different metrics and going over on one metric rather than another. We're trying to make it as simple and as streamlined as possible. So effectively, if you've got one massive site or 5 massive sites and 5 tiny sites, you're going to benefit from just paying the lower rate once you get to one of those higher boundaries. There's probably a sweet spot. I mean, after you've got 2 sites and effectively more than 5,000 items, you're already saving money. Once you get to 10, you're definitely making good margin on that. I think I'll show you one more slide and then it will help all make sense. So the problem with this on its own is it's still very disconnected from how you would bill your customers. You've still got to go away and do something with them and try and hope that you're making margin. So the final piece of the puzzle is tying it all together and combining the two. So effectively, you can give people a fixed price, simple plan model, either using our ones or creating your own, and pay us based on the volume economies of scale model, and make some really good margins in the meantime and have it all automated. So the idea here is, yeah, if you bought 12 sites, 3 on each of these four plans, the clients are going to pay you, in theory, this if you stick with our pricing. You could obviously mark this up, you could give discounts, you can do whatever you want, but you're only going to pay us the flat $20 fee for the instance, and then the usage cost, which is considerably lower because of the economies of scale. So in this example, they're paying you $11.85, you're paying SiteGlide $5.20, making a margin of a minimum of 56%, and bringing your average sort of cost per site down to 43. The reason I say minimum there is twofold. One is you could be charging more if you wanted to on the plans, but the most important one is that the customers are paying for the headroom. They're paying for the 1,000 items per in the static plan or 5,000 in the mini plan, but you guys are only paying for the actual usage. So if they're all at 10% utilization of their plans, you guys benefit from that. So there's a chance, there's an opportunity to make a huge margin there.
Across all sites, and collectively.
Across all sites. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa. I have multiple questions / comments.
Sorry.
They're all positive. No. My first comment is, like, you put a lot of thought into this, because this was a lot of work, honestly. Like, these 3 sides right here were a lot of work, but well thought out. my second point would just be that even if you just had one site that was high usage, you're benefiting quite a bit from that, because it knocks you up into the upper economies of scale, which is pretty cool.
Exactly.
Because if you have
This one here.
one high usage site and 15 smaller usage site, you're still usage sites, you're still paying based on that. Yeah, okay, so that was I like that. Obviously, I like that a lot. I don't understand how you can do in the next slide, how you can charge us the $20, like the basically you're saying like, yeah, there you go. And the agency spend is $60. I mean, I know this is a weird thing to say, but like, how are you going to do that? Because you're basically charging us the same rate for all the different plan types, right? Am I reading that right? Like static launch.
So we're going to charge you guys $20 for the instance.
Yeah, per instance, regardless of what plan it's on.
Yeah, but that's exactly the same model here as you might have with your customers. So you might have some sites where you make no margin on. If you literally offer them essential at $20, put no margin on that at all, and they don't have any extra usage. So that would cost, you would charge $20, and in this scenario, you would pay us $20. So you'd be receiving 3 lots of 20 and spending 3 lots of 20. But 9 times out of 10, there's going to be some usage at some point. So that's where you make your margin, is on the usage.
Yeah, but
that makes sense.
Okay. No, us making the margin makes sense to me. I don't understand how you can charge us the same base rate for all the instances. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it ties in with SiteGlide's POS's original billing, doesn't it? Because POS's model, if I remember from very early days, was actually, in fact, I don't think they had a static site price. They just had a volume of items,
like number
units
of
in this
instances.
case. Yeah,
oh, units.
Yeah, it was quite complicated, but it was, you could buy 60,000 for a price, and
I don't think so. Their original stance the whole time has been a minimum of $50 a site. That was their lowest plan that they were willing to do. We've obviously tried to negotiate some more low end, a more volume model, and that's what I'm still needing to get 100% confirmed before we could even confirm any of this. But effectively, we're reducing our margins as much as possible at the low end to make it possible so that you guys can get more sites on. You don't have to say no to a client or go to a different platform necessarily, but know that as SiteGlide offers more value and as you build more features using the functionality, you're going to spend and they're going to pay for units at some point.
I see. Okay, sorry. I think that's what I was missing. So let me say it back, see if I get this right. So you've always really made your money on the usage anyway. So like, it's not, subtracting the units from, or separating the units visually from the base rate, let's just call it, right? Like instance cost. Like, that's why you can charge the same instance cost for all the instances, because we're going to have 6 on a plan that's using 5,000. We're paying for those units. It's line itemed out differently in a consolidated way. Yeah, I follow.
Pretty much. Basically, our problem until now, to be very clear, is with POS, they've been offering this model. Just literally, you have to buy every, even without essential, actually.
Yeah.
You have to buy every plan, and you have to pick how many units you want, and that determines the rate per unit. I'm trying to get them, and they've agreed that we will get rid of that, move to this model. So we want to offer you this model, but we really appreciate that you still need to be able, like, if you tried to sell that to every single client, that's too complicated. You still need to be able to and want to be able to offer this model, because you can make margin on having those allowances and, you know, a packaged up version. So
Mhm.
we want as many instances, and then at some point increasing usage as well.
Mhm.
And so do you, in theory.
Yeah, we certainly do. Everybody does. I follow. I just, yeah, it's like a weird thing for me to say from this seat, but it's like, I'm just trying to make sure you guys aren't undercutting yourselves too much, if that makes any sense. Sorry,
It's a
that's
bit
a
of-
super unpopular opinion perhaps from.
Come on,
I mean,
man.
We
I
don't
know.
want to have no site glide to use, so we've already been through that.
That's
with
what I'm
Adobe.
getting at. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, the whole thing is a negotiation that has to work for everybody, basically. So from the Platform West side, I've got to make sure it works. You know, I've got to make sure it works for them as well. The one caveat with all of this is, for me to get them to move to this, which has been hard to even start the discussions on, but we've now agreed to do it. The one caveat is going to be that we can't suddenly go to them, well, we want this new model and we want to spend less with you. So we're going to commit to spending the same amount we already do. We're just going to do it on a volume one bill model, which means we need to say the same to you guys, essentially. So we would go through and we would do we would help it be a seamless transition effectively for you guys, where your spend would stay the same, but you would effectively get headroom. If I have a look at this, if it works out that it would have been cheaper on this model, then we'll just give you extra headroom, essentially, of units to use. So you won't be spending more money on units for a while. You would only be spending more if you need more instances. Conversely, if it works out more expensive, we will wear the cost of that for a while and agree how long for, or we'll analyze it per customer and make sure that this is worth moving to, essentially, because I think everybody will want to get rid of the old way. We just want to make sure that it's, you know, financially makes sense.
So will we kind of draw a line in the sand and say, right, at this date, everybody migrates over to the new model? Is that the plan?
That's what I hope to get to. Yes, that obviously coming up with the model is one thing. Actually migrating and putting it in practice is another. So yeah, I think it makes sense that we go through and analyze it. We would let you know what your total number of instances and domains is, plus your total units for the spend, or that you currently use, and then you would have an area in the UI where you could see your one bill, and we'd switch it over to that, and we would just bill you monthly for your effective usage, or exact usage, whatever it might be. Sorry, it's hard to explain while it's ideas, but yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it's just working out, because effectively, you know, some of us have got packs, some of us haven't got packs, but I guess in the back of my head, the packs run out in a year and a half anyway.
I have had to try and factor that in. I think either way, we'll try and make it attractive. So yeah,
well, I think I've
probably
just saved 150 quid a month in accountancy fees. So just my FD going through and allocating everything to the right place, and so on and so forth. So it's certainly the model I really like it as a model. I'm kind of aware that some of our sites, the kind of fixed cost element is, you know, obviously on those starter ones from the original packs, it's I'm not even sure what it is, but maybe $10. I don't know, rather than 20. But I'm sure most of them, at least a good number of them, are using you know, have either gone up to higher levels or are using overages already. So yeah, my gut feel is this should work out okay and effectively in terms of our annual site glide bill for the volume we're using at the moment. Kind of without doing the maths, it feels like it'll be around the same, but
I've done some analysis. I've done some analysis with a few partners. I have looked at yours, Nick, and yeah, it's actually very, close. It's been a nightmare trying to do
Yeah.
all of this and work through it, but it
can well
actually has
imagine.
worked quite nicely.
You're meant to be on holiday. Come on.
Definitely not a holiday.
No. Should anyone ask?
Just to quickly,
if
I wanna-
you're if HMRC ask about the flights that went on the company, it's definitely working out there. Sorry,
that was a very good idea. No. I just wanted to check that people understand, because I'm not even fully there with it, but we're trying to tie the two things together and automate it for you. So one of the things logistically and infrastructure wise we'd want to allow is that you guys can use Stripe, use your own Stripe account, and we'd use our API stroke Stripe Connect to be able to let you set a client log in to you in the portal. You'd be able to set whether the site X, whether you want it to be on consolidated billing, and whether you want the client to pay for a site glide plan, or whether you're going to do your plan separately. And depending on the settings you pick, we want to be able to set it up so it pushes the plans to your Stripe account and manages it that way, or we just provide you with the data via our API and you guys set it up in your own billing system. Like, we want to allow every possibility from your end, but we also want to make sure there's one that's very low maintenance and just set up and works. Again, I haven't explained that as well as I'd like. Does that make sense?
I have an example, Luke. You know, that we can maybe use to unpack this a little more. So
Sure.
for me, I use QuickBooks Online, you know, right? I take, you know, my sites, I set up an automatic reoccurring charge within QuickBooks to ding that customer's card the monthly amount every month for that site. So every month on the
Yep.
1st or the 2nd, money is deposited in my account for what I'm charging clients, you know, kind of thing. So I have that influx of cash, if you will.
Yeah.
And then obviously you guys around the same time would ding my account and charge me, you know, some of that. And then what's ever left over is my, you know, margin, I guess you could say. So if I've got all of my reoccurring charges already set up within QuickBooks Online as part of, you know, my billing bookkeeping system or whatever, are you suggesting that I would do away and have to move the reoccurring charges from QuickBooks Online into SiteGlide and link it to my Stripe account to where it dumps into my bank account that way? Or I would still keep my existing setup?
So this is the thing, we don't want to force you to have to do anything and change to Stripe, but with your current example, there's nothing to tell QuickBooks that client X needs to go up a plan. And that's the one I want to solve with multiple options. I want to solve it with our Stripe route, but I also want you to be able to stick with QuickBooks. If I quickly just show the last slide, what we've just discussed there, you're on the right-hand side, basically. You would pay us the consolidated billing amount, but then potentially we could pass you, or not potentially, we would make available the unit metrics so that you could update QuickBooks if you wanted to, or even a Google Sheet, whatever it might be, to make sure that you know what to bill your customer going forwards. And we don't want to tell you how to do that. We want to make an option, which is the middle one, where we say, look, this is how we offer it, and we make it nice and easy and automated, but you also have the option of doing it yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, I don't know though, for me, you know, I'm already getting enough. I'm getting more than enough from the client to cover it, you
Then
know, kind of thing. So I think that
then you might
your
leave it as it is.
example of kind of really breaking, yeah, I think your example of breaking it down and telling me that my average cost per site is going to be $43, that's well under what I'm already getting from my clients. So as long as it's under, have a little padded, you know, left over, you know, I don't, the complexity of this whole thing, I agree, you know, it is very complex, but I also agree with Devin. I think that, you know, this for the first time seems like it's going in the right or a better direction. I think I feel like it's going in a better direction. But I think for my individual use case, you know, I'm collecting X dollars from the client, which is more than enough to cover each site. So as long as that is true, it doesn't matter how complex this is to me, kind of, sort of, you know. If I was really needing to keep on top of it, you know, or somebody like Nick, you know, with many, you know, a lot more volume, and maybe even a paid full-time employee dealing with billing issues on a regular basis, I can see how needing to know all of this little bits of information, like what site is where and how much, who owes what and much, you know, and all of that kind of stuff. I could see how that would make sense or matter. But for me, as long as I'm getting more than I'm paying you guys, then I'm okay straight across the board. But anything that you guys can do for us to kind of simplify this process, I also think is a positive too.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I think we can just give you a simpler way of charging you and better reporting, which would be the right hand one, without the API bit. But for some people, they might need or want to keep it very much directly related. So whatever the customer's paying is directly related to their usage, and that's where the middle one comes in. So this is why I don't want to go one route. I want to keep it flexible and open, because there are thousands of agencies out there with very different ways of doing things, and we kind of want to cater for all of them. Does anybody else have any sort of different use case to DJs, I guess, in terms of maybe, I mean, just to cover this slide off a little bit, on the left-hand side, you've even got the option of the client paying SiteGlide directly. So that's for an agency that just doesn't want to get involved in billing at all, and wants the client to pay SiteGlide and maybe receive a commission or a discount using the affiliate program setup that we've got. I know a few people use that currently. Yeah, so there's that route. Or there's the one that I think I really want to get to the bottom of, which is the middle one. So being able to let you charge a site plan and then pay us on volume. Sorry, Liz, go for it.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know I had, and I was coughing.
No worries.
Yeah, no, it's good. It reminds me a bit of how BC did it as well. We had the option to do monthly or annually. And I was just looking at my own spreadsheet of the clients, because I sort of manage it all through Airtable actually, so I can see what's happening and I update this pretty regularly. The other problem I have, I've got monthly clients on monthly bills, clients on annual, and I also have some on quarterly. Is that something that anyone else does, or is that something that could be thrown into the mix as well? Because you know how you talk about having monthly and annually, or does that just make it too complicated?
I mean, from our perspective, you could do whatever you want. Sorry, just to answer quickly. If you're using Stripe or whatever you wanted, you can charge however you want, quarterly, daily, if you wanted to. We would just essentially have the one bill with you guys, and we would allow you to set up your own plans in Stripe on any billing term and link the two together. And obviously that needs a bit more thought. So sorry, I'll let anybody else answer if they currently do quarterly.
We've got everybody on monthly just for nicety of cash flow, I think is the the way of phrasing it. So rather than getting lumps in, we just like to have the monthly fee in.
So sorry to jump in here, but go on, Devin, go for it.
Go. I was just gonna say, we don't bill anyone quarterly, and we've actually moved, I think, almost all our clients in SiteGlide to annual, just for the additional margin. But I guess we would get that, you know, through this as well. That's what it looked like.
Yeah, so we're trying to make sure that annual to you guys there's no benefit for it really. I think a monthly bill from us is better for everybody. So we're probably not going to incentivize a monthly bill discount for you guys, but we want you to be able to do that with customers, because in some cases it's better to have that, you know, upfront commitment. And Liz, yeah, quarterly as well, if that suits.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, like, I think some of the hang up with the annual payments came from BC clients. And then interestingly, I do have some clients who just want to pay once a year and forget about it. Yeah. And they're always tricky because if they happen to, you know, pull the pin at the wrong time, could end up costing me, sorry, that, would end up costing, you know, costing the business quite a lot of money. Yeah, you know, the timing's interesting. That's something I've got to manage internally. Yeah, no, I don't think I've got a big problem with the proposal though. I think it could work quite well. I guess, Tony, can you go back to that slide that's got the record count on it again though? The one with the...
Yeah, I mean, don't hold me too much to the numbers.
Okay. Yeah, actually, no, that's probably not too bad because, yeah, I find I've got this weird bunch of clients that sit around the 10,000 plus records. So, yeah, that 5 to 20,000 probably does work better as well, if that's going to be the split.
And just, yeah, on that example, the second you total more than 20,000, you're going to get it half price, and then
it's going to get, yeah. Have to encourage them to do more.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, any immediate concerns or feedback, I guess, that we haven't already discussed?
I have a question. I'm pretty much doing the agency affiliate program.
Yep.
So, you're planning on keeping that, or you're suggesting to migrate to these new offerings?
We'll keep it as long as there's a demand for it. Basically, I've done a few FAQs here, and one of the questions was, will there still be one? The answer is yes, if people want it. The question will be, if consolidated billing is that good, there might not be a need for it. But I think we'll always have affiliates, and there'll always be a need to offer that. So it's very likely. I can't see why there wouldn't be. Yeah.
And so my B question is, you know, I like the affiliate plan because it's a very simple structure for me to sell, meaning I can just, all my clients, generally, I try to put them on an annual billing cycle. And, you know, they get a discount for the annual price. But as far as the units go, I just was looking at my site. I don't see any of my sites running over the units. So what I'm unsure of is if when they run over the units, are they immediately charged, or is it a notice that they get and I get? I've never run into this experience in this before, because if I was to switch over to the plan B, I would assume that I would probably be getting the notification that they're running, that they need to buy more, you know, they need to upgrade their site. So then I would have to reach out to my client to let them know, hey, you know, you're rocking and rolling, which means, you know, we got to put more money towards it, that kind of thing. Is that how it works? Because I've never seen that, because I'm a little guy right now.
Sure. So the way it works currently is very similar to what we've got here, but the metrics are more generous here. So currently, if you've got somebody on static and it's only 100 records, as an example, currently, if they hit that limit, they would get a bill for the extras, or they would have the option to upgrade. So it's exactly the same. We just want to try and make it a little bit more flexible, because you don't really want people getting extra bills too often, or, you know, finding that they need to upgrade. So if you stayed on the affiliate program, it will work exactly the same way. They would only pay extra should they exceed the limit. If you moved to the consolidated billing option, then you would be paying the extra, and you would need to make sure that you pass that cost on, which is why we're trying to offer an automated model for that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but so when they're automatically charged for the extra overage? In other words, they're when they go over, they're charged for the overages.
In arrears, yeah.
Yeah, and then do they get a notification that they were charged?
Sorry, yeah, forgot that part of your question. Yeah, so there's a email warning message on the 10th and the 20th of the month currently saying whether you're approaching or exceeding the limits. And then you get the Stripe email, I think, with the invoice. And you can obviously see it in the UI as well. So again, we want to do a lot to improve the notifications, the reporting, and the expectation of what's coming as well. That's another part of this whole thing.
And this is a notification I would get also as an agency, along with the client.
If you're just on the site, the affiliate program one, I think probably not at the moment. I would actually have to check that, but yeah, we'll definitely work out. We'll want loads more feedback from you guys as we go forwards with this in terms of what's missing or what could be improved from a UX and notification perspective.
Okay. So, I mean, as far as I know, I don't know if they've been charged, but maybe they have been charged. I don't know if maybe there's a way I could find that out.
Yeah, I can't think off the top of my head, but you would be able to go into the site in Portal and you'd be able to see the subscription and the invoices. But
that's only showing the monthly, right? Activity.
The invoices would show the history, but I can't be sure.
Okay, I'll dig around. I don't want to take up all the time on this, but
sure. I'm just not sure if you get the notifications as well. I think you probably do, but we'd have to check that.
Most likely they would tell me too. So, and I haven't, so I don't think because clients do that.
Okay. They do.
Thank you.
Cool. No worries. But yeah, it's a good, completely different use case to some people. So we really want to cover everything, and being quite open, the affiliate program is clunkier than I would like, in the sense that it relies on tracking and that kind of stuff, but it's a very common SaaS route, and we want to be able to attract people who don't want to get involved directly with the billing. So yeah, I think that's an easier one for us to figure out, to be honest. So we'll just make sure we cover that in the plans.
Yeah,
Just
so
in
I
the
think
chat
I'm
quickly.
really,
Oh, go on, Nick.
so I really like the new kind of units in a bucket approach. That definitely works for us, and certainly work for our internal accounting. That will be a hell of a lot easier. Just on the notification side, I guess almost the dream for me now, if we're moving to this model where I don't necessarily have to worry when a client goes slightly over from in terms of what it's going to cost us. But what would be really nice is if then probably where it says the plan they're on currently in the back of the site, whether we could then reconfigure it. And again, maybe this is different for different agencies, but so that it, if they've gone from starter to, well, I forget what's after starter. I get so confused with all the names. Is it launch? Is it launch
Mini.
after starter? Who knows? Mini, thank you. But yeah, of course, not starter there, is it now? But yeah, if they went from static to mini, and so they kind of, they literally went, if it just, we got an alert, so we could then change their billing, because I think we bill everything through Xero, and whilst we could API that, a lot of the invoices we have might have the license fee, the support fee, another line for digital marketing. So it's kind of pre-set up, so they get one invoice. It's done through it's done on direct debit, and that makes that side of things a lot easier. But it'd be just nice to have an alert to say that went to the client. Again, if they got that automation saying you know, because I don't think our clients currently get any of that. You know, it's down to us to let them know they've gone over a level. But it'd be really nice if there was a SiteGlide email, because we've rebranded back from eFusion to SiteGlide to make everybody's lives easier from that point of view. But if there was a SiteGlide invoice that could go out to them saying, you know, you're approaching your limit within this plan, you know, either reduce the number of records. So it would be just nice if it was coming from SiteGlide rather than us, and then just to say, oh, you've now gone over your plan, therefore there'll be an extra charge. You've now moved up to this plan. No, you don't have to say the price of the plan, just so they know what's happened.
This is where you're bringing in the complexity that I can't even get my head around to some extent at the moment. It's like another dimension where, in theory, these plans might not even be in place if you're on the right-hand model, which is just basically doing consolidated billing. To some extent, SiteGlide doesn't care. It doesn't look at plans anymore. We're just going to bill you for the usage. It's up to you whether you make up your own plans or use the new model we're going to put in place with Stripe Connect. So if you're using Stripe Connect, then we're going to make sure we've got a model where we fully automate it for you. So yes, they would be effectively on a plan, either one of our standard ones or a custom one that you've made. And you or they would be upgrading it in the UI. And then at that point, they're probably paying through the UI anyway. So those kind of situations are probably going to be quite automatic and solved. The trickier bit is when you're not using let me just go across to it. When you're not using the middle one, if you're just using the right-hand one, you're paying up. You might still want us to show you what the effective site plan would be, even though they're not technically on it, if you see what I mean. Like you might want a notification when they hit 5,000 units so that you can go and do something at your end, maybe.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if there's anything we can do from the I mean, is that data available on each site, or could it be made available? Because then we can just create an automation and push that out ourselves according to our use case, couldn't we?
That's one thing we want to look at, is just opening it up via the API to say, well, here's the data, do whatever you need with it.
Get their own system to email them out and say, this is the situation. If you want to come and do something about it, i.e. remove 1,000 people from your CRM, knock yourself out. If not, it can be billed at this date.
So for the more hands-on agencies that want to, build it into your existing systems, I think this route is good, the site usage API. But for those that kind of want SiteGlide to put it on a plate for you, the middle one is the one we want to really be able to offer.
Cool. Lovely, thank you.
No worries. I appreciate it taking up quite a bit of time. So I don't really think there was anything else.
Luke, can I ask one more question?
Sure.
I did notice in the fine print, which is all to be changed and negotiated and such, the action, automation tasks. So is there a difference between an automation task where I'm making an API call to MailChimp or whatever, and an automation that is essentially serving as what used to be the autoresponder because it's an email firing, right?
There is no automation task metric at the moment. It's for a feature that we plan to introduce soon.
I'm stealing the thunder. I'm sorry. Let's just
no, that's cool. I guess really it's just we're trying to bundle everything into units. So to answer your question, autoresponders and that kind of stuff at the moment would just be email usage. API calls would be if you're doing third-party stuff that's not like Zapier.
Cool.
Automation tasks would be if we bring in this kind of integration tool to connect up to X other things, or we might come up with another usage unit type as well.
Okay, cool. That's good.
But there's no, to answer your question, there's no like changes to, we're not going to suddenly start charging for something that's currently free.
Right, okay, got it. That's helpful.
Cool. Anybody else got? Oh, actually, I'm just going to go through the chat quickly while anybody's thinking of something else. Helen, you mentioned quite a while back. Apologies. I'd like mention of the essential plan without agency discount visible to public, as my model is to have the client pay direct. So, first point on that, the agency discount effectively won't be needed anymore on this model because the discount is the margin and it's far better effectively. So we're trying to simplify everything. At the moment, we've got to do loads of calculations to work out whether you're on a 20% discount or whatever it might be. The discount applies to the site at the point it goes live, and it's all very confusing. So we would try and just move to giving you guys margin on the unit rates effectively. It doesn't mean that we can't do offers. Like we might end up at some point saying to you guys, get an instance for $10 instead of 20. That might be a promotion that we run, but the agency discount effectively we will replace with the consolidated billing. And the second part of your question is, yeah, I mean, the plan would be, once we've got feedback from you guys and gone through it all, that X number of plans, let me just get back to the slide, would be public on the website. So in theory, as long as they don't make your lives harder in terms of reselling SiteGlide, we would put something along these lines live publicly, knowing that you guys either justifiably mark it up or bundle it into other services, or are making are making good margins on it through consolidated billing. So we want people to know that they could get started for $20, but they're not going to get anything included with that. I hope that answers your question, Helen. Do put something in the comments. If not,
just very quickly, pages did they used to count as unit somewhere, I thought.
Bandwidth, we did have. To be honest, that's something that POS, we literally use POS metrics, and they're going to need to look at bringing things like bandwidth back in at some point. What part of my pitch to move to this model is, it's going to be a lot easier to bring in a new metric if we've actually got simplified pricing that we're all happy with. So at the point where they look to bring in another metric, we will obviously discuss that with you guys, make it clear how it would work, and have a period of trialing it. But at the moment, there is no tracking of bandwidth. Right,
but if they've got 3,000 pages, actual static pages on an essential site, it doesn't count as 3,000 units currently then?
No, it wouldn't do. It would be storage that would hit you first. Because you're going to have some imagery and that kind of stuff, total storage.
Yeah. And sorry, then how does total storage work on these plans?
Sorry, let me go back one. So what we're trying to do is include 250 megabytes of storage. Again, this is all ideas and to be firmed up in the $20 site fee. And then extra storage would be charged as a normal unit. So if you've got 100
we don't know what
sites,
the ratio would be, or is it 1 meg per unit, or?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. It would be 1,000 megabytes, I believe. Let me think back one through. We'll confirm, but it would be it'd be pretty reasonable. Yeah.
Cool. And then domains on there, you've got them down as $20, but that's the front end pricing, not what we would pay. So if we've got a site with 3 domains, for example, which we've got, I think one's got 3 domains on it, then.
I've left that in currently as the same price as the instance. It's very much up for, that's one area we can either do discounts or just bring the cost down on. The reason it's left there is that technically you can run multiple websites on the same instance, and you are in some cases getting a lot more value by having more domains on there. Having said that, there are cases where you're not really getting much more value, so it's a tricky one. That is currently, I've got it in there as the cost as part of consolidated billing, but as I say, yeah, that's definitely something that we can work on.
Yeah, cool, thanks.
I think domains has always cropped up. Some people just want to put extra domains in there because they need a home and they need redirecting, and that's not the best use of domains on Platform OS or SiteGlide really, but we'll still try and make it attractive, I guess. Just seeing Helen's comments. Yeah, Essential looks like it could be a good starter site that would work for many. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to leave it there unless there's any sort of burning questions. We'll share more of this very soon. What was really helpful was to check that we were, there wasn't any immediate alarm bells, red flags or anything. So it sounds like we're on the right track. Hopefully lots of positives overall. I think we'll work out which bits we're struggling with and maybe share in Discord or get your involvement in. Yeah, I'll stop sharing, I think, and hand over to maybe back to Martin, but then for any other questions people have.
Yeah, I think thanks. A lot of information there. I think for time, let's open the floor up to everybody else. And I can circle back to mine if we have time at the end. Does anybody have any questions they came with or feedback tonight that they wanted to raise and make us aware of?
I had a question. Best practice question. So in thinking through a real estate website and the data that would be collected or have to be managed on that, I'm trying to figure out what would be the best current way to build this out via web apps. So I guess, is it better to create separate web app items for certain data points, that we want to collect, manage, maintain, whatever, and then just link those via a data source, to another web app and kind of build it out with multiple web apps? Or is it best to just dump everything into a single web app and then divvy out the necessary information on the front side as needed?
We did one in BC and everything was in the one web app, bar things that were notably, so all of our property listing, there was a property listing web app, and every piece of information about a piece of property, location, address, whatever that was, all the images, they were all in one web app, which I imagine for SiteGlide in terms of data usage and cost of data would be the smart way of doing it as well. I can't think of a reason. The only other thing you then might bring in is, as we do on a few sites now, is you've got blog posts and you might bring in blogs and other pieces of information or local information that's used across lots of different properties. So, if it happens to be located near a new park, near a park, and you wanted to showcase information about the park and have locations as a separate web app separate to the property. But yeah, I think I would definitely put it into one web app. Anyone else got thoughts on that?
Yeah,
I'm thinking mostly from a performance perspective, actually, yeah. Like what would be the most efficient workflow, I guess, performance wise? Yeah.
so speed, like front end support. Oh, sorry, let's go.
DJ, I've got a site that's it's like a real estate site, but it's for business sales. And it was a BC site originally. So when we shifted it, it's all web app based, and it's got some side web apps as well, like for the sales brokers, you know, the people, because they're attached to different businesses that are sold. And the images, we manage, there's a gallery on the detail page, so that's managed by a folder. So the client just sticks all the properties photos into properties own directory, and that's just pulled up on the page. So that all seems to work pretty well. And over the top of that, we use categories. So if it's for sale or it's sold, is it manufacturing? Is it, you know, food? All those sorts of categories. So I'll send you the link and you can have a look. But it's running pretty well, and it's not on a high plan, but they've got probably a couple hundred businesses in there at the moment. I think last time I looked. Yeah.
Yeah,
works.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, thanks for that, Liz.
DJ, I'll put a link in the chat of the site. So we've done a lot with data source, linking multiple web apps together. We've done this on several sites. The upside, I think part of it has to do with how many fields each of your properties is going to have, right? So the example I'm posting is a plant directory, right? And it's like, so the plants have a number of data points about them. You're looking for plants in the Pacific Northwest that grow in sunlight and are, you know, whatever, like long list of things. Because there were so many data points for each plant, we actually built out sort of a filters web app, and we created relationships to the plant itself. And the advantage to that is that if you have 500 things in there, right, and you decide that you want to rename the data point red to reddish, right, you got to go do that in 500 items. But if you do it the way we did it, which is linking data, then you just do it one place, right? You do it in that filters web app, which is the list of filter names and not like that kind of thing. So if it's, I think volume matters in this, and performance, front end performance matters too. But I can say that this is an example of a site that has, I think there's like 1,000 plants in there and maybe like 750 combos, something like that. So it's got a fair amount of data, and the front end performance is not negatively affected. Like it's still got pretty good speed scores. So, but if it's maybe if the properties only have like less than 10 data points or something like that, I like Liz's suggestion about the folder. I loved when SiteGuide added that folder field type that you can just drop images in a folder and then output them. That was huge, because if you had 15 pictures before, you had to have 15 fields. Now you just have one field. So if you don't know about that field type, you should look it up. You should go in the docs and look up the folders field type. When you're building out a web app, you'll see it. So that's just my 2 cents on that. And then the other consideration when you're linking is, do you need to link more? Is it a many-to-many relationship, or is it many-to-one? Meaning, do you need to create relationships where, you know, this plant is linked to 4 other plants, right? And in that case, you definitely use the data source, multi-data source field, which is also super powerful, which essentially just creates, you know, like you could use it for like related items or, you know, related properties, whatever you want to say.
Sure.
So if you're going to do that, then you might just, if you have a property with, I don't know, 5 data points, 10 data points or something, build those fields out in your web app and then create one field called related properties that is a multi-data source field. Then you can create some relationships without going crazy, like we did in the plant example. If that's helpful.
So having multiple web apps with, you know, buckets of information, each one, and linking them to each other hasn't had a performance, you know, issue there in terms
We've-
of serving up the data when people go to access it on the front side. Yeah.
I'd say we've kicked the tires on that pretty good. It did initially, but then SiteGlide even put in some new features to improve the performance and caching and things like that. So I think we were kind of in the early days when we built this, and it was a little bit sluggish, and then Matt put in some things that improved the performance significantly. So
All right.
Just quickly,
Great.
DJ.
Josh did this. Josh did this work. He's here. AI Josh has entered the room. Okay, what's up?
Yeah, I was just going to say the keyword sync functionality. We don't actually need to use that anymore. And if your client ever needed to, we could replace that with SiteGlide automations, because now we've got the ability on save to just compile for that single web app item, obviously in SiteGlide admin, to just resync that keywords field.
Oh, that's super cool. Nice. That nobody knows what we're talking about, but that's another huge improvement. That was a feature. The keyword sync that Josh was talking about was a challenging thing to build, or it took time. It touched the entire site. So he's saying that that's basically been replaced by native automation function, which is just another tip of the hat to the improvements overall.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
it's really
thanks
nice
you
to-
guys for all the feedback. I've got to go through these chat posts here and make sure I capture everything.
I can send it to you after because we get exports. But yeah, Helen, just for the recordings, put an example of using code snippets to use Liquid to do some extra conditions in web apps. Because obviously you can't put Liquid into a text field in a web app because it will render as text. So yeah, good idea. Yeah, I'll forward that.
Just on these great tips, it'd be really good to have a like a town hall or whatever, a session on better ways of doing things, because obviously things are moving pretty quickly, and I keep discovering new things, and I'm sure there's a lot I've missed. Is that
Definitely.
something? Yeah, soon.
Yeah, yeah, we've talked about it a few times, and it needs to happen. I think maybe even starting a little bit more informally of just a place in Discord where we pick a day and a time, and people turn up if they want to, and do it. Maybe even weekly or bi-weekly if people thought it was that useful. So we definitely need to do it, and hopefully it'd be beneficial.
That'd be great.
Cool. Just quickly back to the keyword point and Devon's point. It's really good to see a feature, especially a feature that's very hard to like know all the use cases for, and it's very powerful, but you don't know exactly why or how. It's great to hear it being used and solving problems. Like Devon, you and I first talked about sort of automations as a concept a long time ago, and knew it had power, but we didn't necessarily know every use case. So yeah, great to hear Josh's example.
And honestly, we're still I guess we're kind of scratching the surface on that, not for lack of you all trying, because Martin, you put together some good examples of automations like happening before our very eyes, but like I've still yet to sit down with site gurus and be like, hey, here's like 5 things I want to try, like, but I don't know how to write the Liquid. Can you write that? And then I would gladly share those things with the community. Like, it's just not something that we've done yet. So I think there's more to come with that. Yeah.
Just quickly, actually, sort of leading on really, had a call with Devon last week, and then briefly spoke to Nick via email and a few different people about different things. But I'm going to put a place in Discord where we can discuss this discussion was more specifically building modules for the marketplace, and I think that we should have an area for that where we can kind of discuss different approaches and maybe working together. We're trying to streamline it and standardize it a bit, so there's a bit of a template to work from. So I want to get that conversation going, but also tying into what you've just said, Liz, get some more discussion going about what people are doing, maybe best practices, standardization, that kind of stuff. So please do use Discord. Please either create things or suggest things, and we'll create any more channels accordingly, really. But I'll kick that one off this week, and it'd be great to have everybody's input, especially on the module side of things. Modules is really powerful if we get it right and if we try and standardize things. So it'd be really great to get people's input on what kind of modules are needed, how people are going to go about it, whether we're going to use sort of Flowbyte or the Bootstrap route as the framework for it. Those kind of discussions really, and collaborating on it.
Nick, yes, I do want to hear from Nick. Luke, it's 1 a.m. where you are. You should be the one who's like short circuiting, and you're not at all. I was going to chime in on 2 things quickly. So Helen's asking how do other people sell SiteGlide sites, and that probably could be a bigger discussion. I'll just say on our side, we just sell ourselves. We do not sell. We don't lead with SiteGlide. What we do is we show up. We build relationships with people. They want to hire us, and just like the contractor that you hired to build your house, you're not asking them what kind of drill they use. You might ask, do you like DeWalt drills, or do you like, Makita drills? I could ask them that, but I really don't care. I care about how good they're doing, how good of a job they're doing, and can they do what I need them to do. But I will say it is really reassuring. WordPress has not had good press. I mean, there have been a number of issues with spam, with hacking. It's not hard to tell somebody. It's not hard for someone to go on Google and find evidence that WordPress sites get hacked all the time. And so that's commonly the one that people come with, is like, well, what's the and it's almost gotten easier over the years, I would say, because now there's like the category of like DIY, like Wix, Squarespace, whatever. And it's like, cool, that's great for you to do your own building over there. We don't consider that like industrial level infrastructure. WordPress is also not industrial level infrastructure. List out 3 reasons why. So we use SiteGlide. That's it. That's what we do. And then we've had 0 pushback. We charge everybody at least $100, no matter what plan they're on. And anyone who's on higher plans is paying much more than that. 0 pushback, no pushback not even once. Okay, my question for Nick, though, is, Nick, you were mentioning the Tailwind thing, and I just wanted to, I understand that learning Tailwind and getting your developers in Tailwind is a thing. I'm curious, are you all using Site Builder? Have you gone that route? What's your kind of workflow?
Like? So we're a little bit strange because we've got this beautiful Flowbyte product which we could use to build entire sites from. In fact, I've used it myself. I'm no longer a coder, to build a site for my friend's building and loft conversion business, and it's been really straightforward. I've had to kind of look in a few docs so I could kind of get the logo in at a larger size and a few things like that, but really quite straightforward even for me these days. So that's our kind of one complete Flowbyte site that we've done, and you could look at it and very quickly see that we've literally just switched out the images, changed the logo, and it's really standard thing. We don't, as in general, that was a mate site that I'm doing free of charge for him, kind of thing. So I say free of charge, he kind of built my house last year, so I definitely owe him. What we tend to do is design bespoke, and our designers, they look at the right way to build a website, but at no point do they consider, oh, we need to structure it in this way to kind of crowbar it, if you like, into a Flowbyte template. What we kind of on our next stage that we do want to get to, and we think we're probably quite close on this, it's just a case of having the chance to try, is actually what a lot of our customers do. So we work with a group in the UK called Entrepreneur Circle, and they are, they must have about 5,000. They bring on about 300 members a month currently, so it's a fast growth business. And a lot of what they do is talking about people with their, kind of doing their Google ads, their Facebook, getting their website conversion right. But as part of that, we need our clients to be able to build their own landing pages. So our kind of plan within this is that we could, we will still build bespoke sites, but give them functionality that we've got a bespoke site, but they can just go and grab the Flowbyte modules, potentially other modules that we might build bespoke for them. So we've got layers that we can add into their the sections of the agency models. And one thing I need to ask actually on that is, which I haven't looked at yet, within agency modules, can we narrow that down to this is just for this particular client, because we're designing bespoke sites, so it might be something that needs to get added at that point. But yeah, that's really our model. It's kind of to, we might end up on those landing pages literally having a bespoke header, a bespoke footer. Everything in the middle is Flowbyte, so they can build a landing page out. So that's our real kind of aim for it, and just to allow them a lot of flexibility. You want this, you want this, you want this, you can put it in from there. You can embed your blog, whatever you want to do on those pages, without having to come back to us because you've decided you're going to do a new ad. It needs to roll tomorrow morning. It's 9 o'clock at night, and we're not available to do it for you. So yeah, that's the plan.
Got it. Cool. That's helpful.
Cool.
Excellent.
Yeah, I agree with Devin too, as well as, in terms of, how you present yourself. I present myself as me. People come to me for me, as their expert, and I create relationships with my clients that, they trust me to make decisions on their behalf, and provide the solutions, for them based on my expertise and, experience and that kind of thing. And then we obviously charge them, for that. So I'm not really also not putting SiteGlide out there or anything like that. That's one of the main reasons why I'm billing the way that I do, is because I want their credit card statement to read Relevant Made, right? Because I want my brand to be front and center for them. That's the relationship that they know. They have one point of contact in me. I'm managing their stuff, and that's working well for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes without saying, but we just want to support you guys however you want to do it. So we'll be in the background if that works. And I think, given the conversation just before Christmas, having some material that might help pitch SiteGlide or the benefits, we definitely still want to do that, whether you do it overtly as SiteGlide or whether you do it as just a piece to help people not pick WordPress for example. So we definitely want to do that, and I think some sort of collaboration, that would be good.
I think it's also important to share. I'm sorry, this is going longer, Luke, and I know it's late. I just gonna say, like, I think it's also important to share when things go wrong. Like when you're in a sales conversation, you need to share some stories about things that went wrong and how you handled them, not just how you're great and you do everything perfectly. In the last 2 months, we had a basically like a phishing credit card attack on one of, I think it was on our biggest site on SiteGlide. Person, like whoever it was, like basically was trying thousands of cards, and some of them worked and some of them didn't, and it was a big mess. And we had reCAPTCHA on the forms. They were credit card forms, and it was like a fairly high volume site. And I don't know, within a week or less, it might have been 4 days, HCAPTCHA had been rolled out by SiteGlide. We had stopped the bleeding, went back. SiteGlide supported us. Matt did a whole bunch of work to go back and clean up a bunch of data for us, to like close the loop on some things, for us to help find you know, like, was this a legit customer? Was this not a legit customer? Like that kind of thing. So, you know, we did a lot of work and we billed the client for all that work. And we made it clear to them, look, any site can be a target of this kind of thing. But it wasn't like, I don't know, another client that we had that came to us back in the BC days who their WordPress site was hacked and like a bunch of porn landing pages were put on their domain for like 7 weeks. Like that's a whole different thing. And that's not happening. That hasn't happened to us. But I guess the point is I would share that story with the next 2-3 prospects I come in contact with, because I think it's really important for them to hear if something goes wrong, we have a really close, we have a close connection. I don't say in detail that I'm like slacking Matt, but like, like we have a close connection with the SiteGlide team and they respond to us very quickly. And even under SiteGlide, there's another layer of infrastructure and security. And so it's just like, it just makes you feel better. I don't know, as a business owner to know all that. So it's important to talk about that stuff.
That's exactly for me too, why I went with SiteGlide and Platform OS, for the security and just the peace of mind of knowing, I'm not a PHP developer. So the idea that I would have to migrate everything, all my sites to a WordPress, situation, I just felt like that put me at greater risk of running into too many problems that I couldn't solve myself. And I didn't want to put myself in that position, to let clients down, because again, they are trusting me. I'm the one who is going out and finding the tools like that carpenter, kind of thing. I want this hammer. I want this drill. I want this tape measure. I'm making those choices in order to provide the solution that I am for my customer. So they're trusting that I'm doing that. And when I'm picking that tool, I want to know that that tool is going to work for me and it's going to remain working for me. And that was one of the probably bigger and important, reasons for choosing SiteGlide.
Yeah, it's great to hear these examples, and I mean, Helen's just asked whether we could do some sort of blog post about this kind of stuff. It's always a little tricky, but yeah, I'd love to. Maybe we can have an area in Discord where we can even just throw in some success stories or something. I don't want to take up people's time, but it would be good to pull some of this together, I think, and be able to share it and showcase it. So personally, it's so helpful just to hear feedback and what the reasons are, what you value most. So it's very helpful to us, but let's try and turn it into something useful as well. Yeah.
I think Luke needs to do a blog post on sleeping right now, maybe.
Yeah.
But these are good. No, I would like to share more too, but I don't want to take up more time. So you can reach out to me, Helen, if you want. I've got horror stories to tell you about WordPress. I hate WordPress.
Oh, well.
It's evil.
Yeah, let's try and I'm conscious of everybody's time, throughout the week and everything. So, but let's try and, if people are keen to share, let's try and do it somehow. Let's work out the best way of doing it. It'd be really good.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So from an analytical perspective, are we the only ones who understand that WordPress was never created to be a website CMS, that it was created to be a blog solution for the news organization, but was forced into being a website builder kind of thing? Are we the only ones that know that? Because
With
it seems logical.
bungee cords and rubber bands. Yes.
Yeah. It's like, come on. I mean, you can't understand that right there is the reason behind all the problems. Anyway.
Excellent. I think we'll share a place in Discord to continue all of this, so that everyone can look over it. And yeah, I think we should absolutely look to share some in more official formats as well. I'm conscious of time. It's getting late.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I've got a very quick last thing that I
Yep.
just want to leave SiteGlide with, just to maybe take a look at and go, no chance that doesn't that can't work within SiteGlide. But one of my clients introduced me to something called Clean Talk or Clear Talk. No, Clean Talk. It is Clean Talk, which is a plugin. I'll just put it into the. I'll just put it into the chat, and it looks like it's something that's got lots of database of bots, and it somehow tests bots as they come in. But they didn't like the H capture solution. They just don't like the look of it, and they just said, "Oh, can we put Clean Talk on?" I'm like, never heard of it. It looks like it's kind of pre-built for WordPress and other PHPs, but I think it could potentially be built into other platforms. But yeah, if we can maybe cast an eye over it and see if it is something that is feasible. I've told them no for now, so there's no kind of deadline rush on it. But yeah, if it is something that might be useful as another spam protection that doesn't then require any kind of extra ticking or any kind of extra challenge. And H capture is a lot better than recapture in terms of load speed, but it still slows it. It still flags up typically in Google speed test. But yeah.
We kind of foresaw that feedback on H capture, and we have looked into what the next option is for us on it. There's something called invisible, which you'd think means that you wouldn't see it, but it doesn't. Invisible just means you don't get the box, you just click the button, but it would still present the challenge. To get rid of the challenge, it's something called hybrid or something like that. I can't remember the name. And that is on the paid plans. So essentially we could look at implementing that so that people could use it, but you would probably need to have your own paid plan with H capture, or we would need enough enough comments from people that it's worth us looking at building it in. I just mentioned that because this
module effectively then a version of H capture.
Yeah, they've got an enterprise version or a professional version that allows you to do this hybrid passive. I think it's called passive actually, where it just basically means it doesn't do the challenge 90% of the time or something. I just mentioned that because Clean Talk,
if the client wants to pay for it, then they can do.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I mentioned it, because Clean Talk does look like it is a paid service anyway. So I don't know anything about it, but their website doesn't fill me with a huge amount of confidence compared to something like H capture. So
yeah, you do look at it and think, you haven't put any money in there, have you? But yeah, they kind of raised it. I hadn't heard of Clean Talk before. It's I mean, it reads well in terms of what it does potentially, but everything reads well until it falls on its arse and you get a spam attack. It's
so I mean, I guess at some point, if there was enough demand for different things, then maybe we'd open it up and let you guys. I don't know if it's impossible security-wise to let you implement your own anti-spam, but I don't think we want to sort of be implementing all sorts of ones. We were hoping H captures the solution, but maybe we do need to look at the paid version as well.
Yeah, possibly. Maybe there's an option that we, as you say, we kind of have a strip of code like we did for for whatever, put a strip of code in because we've licensed it, then all the clients licensed it, then the option's there for them if they're
I have a few clients who like choosing from panda pictures as opposed to traffic light pictures, so I think H capture is fine, but it's all pandas and stuff. I don't know.
Cool. Can I slip something into real quick? Has anybody dealt with workflow notifications constantly being sent to spam? Is there an easy fix around that? Or is it? Am I the only one who's dealing with that?
So I've experienced it both as a SiteGlide staff member and also when testing other people's sites. So some of it's at the mail level. So some people, such as mine, the mail client tries to be too clever, so you can deal with it on that end. But the other big step is making sure that you have domain authentication turned on for the account that sends the autoresponders. So you have to request it. So basically every site has a linked account that it uses its own account with SendGrid to send those autoresponders. So if you want to, you can request access to that. We'll generate you a login and then you can go and set that up. Some of you have for some sites and some of you haven't for others. It's one of those things. Some sites will go their entire lives and never have a problem, and then others will get hit within months. So yeah, on a site-by-site basis, if you need it, you can ask for it.
Yeah,
And
at
it's
very
a setting
simple
on
level, make
SendGrid
sure,
then. Yeah.
yeah, make sure the email that it's coming from. So, well, I just wasn't thinking the other day, and my ops director pulled me up on it, and you know, it was going to, I forget, info@client domain, and I sent it from info@client domain to info@client domain. So yeah, that ended up straight in their spam, and yeah, I got a slap.
You
on the
have
wrist
to
from my ops
authenticate the
director.
domain though. You have to
Yeah,
have
I think in that case the
authentication on
domain
the
had been
SendGrid side.
authenticated already.
Yeah.
It was just my bad in setting up that form.
All right. I'll look at those. And Martin, you're going to be able to send me the chat stuff so I don't have to try to capture that.
Yeah, we get an export, so I can send it out in the notes after the call. It's not a problem.
All right. Thanks, guys. Great job as always.
Cool.
Nick, just quickly, I was looking into that Clean Talk program that you mentioned. From what I can see, it looks like you need a native integration or a PHP server to be able to install it. I will look into it a bit more for you.
Yeah, I did look and realize it was PHP, and that wasn't going to work, obviously. But
yeah,
if something could be done natively, but yeah, it's one client, and
yeah. I
to be honest, they're trying to ruin their website anyway.
No. I think the best option would potentially be Cloudflare. I'm not an expert on Cloudflare, but from what I know, you take some DNS records and you change your name servers through to Cloudflare. So when you hit the domain, it goes to Cloudflare first. They do their check and they look through IP logs and see if there's any spam accounts. And then they redirect the user to the domain. You'll have to do some research into it because it's just off the top of my head. But I believe that's what you need to do. They do have a free plan from memory. And from what I know, you could then essentially remove HCapture from your site if you do that as well.
Okay. So remove HCapture and just leave the form effectively empty because the so it's doing the same thing that Clean Talk does, but on all of the traffic, not just the just the form call then.
So they don't even hit the website essentially in the first place, and that also the additional layer for DDoS protection as well. Not that that client necessarily will need that, but it's part of their service.
And with Cloudflare, we've got the option to redirect the domain and put it in normally as well. So that's fine, isn't it? Cool. Worth considering. Just don't want another spam attack.
It would be worth mentioning that obviously those options won't have the backing of the DevOps team of POS in terms of reliability and coverage on that.
Yeah. I'll try and convince them that HCapture is fine.
Fab. Alrighty. Well, we're getting on a bit on time. Did anybody else have anything pressing they'd like to ask? If not, we can round things up. No. Okay. Well, lots of great feedback there. So thank you all. Obviously, we'll share links and we'll share more information on what Luke had discussed earlier on the billing stuff as well. And then if you do have any other thoughts or feedback following the call, then you can, of course, just let us know, respond in Discord or email or what have you. So
yeah, just a quick thank you to everybody for the feedback and watching a presentation on billing. I know it's not the most exciting, but it's really, really helpful to get input and feedback on that, and hopefully on the right track.
Yeah, it's looking good.
So, thanks everyone. Well, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, cheers,
thanks,
guys.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.